I'm Kevin Ranke, and I'd like to welcome you to Beyond the Echo. I ran for governor in Michigan. After losing that election, my desire to look at issues that are important to the state or the country grew. There is so much static. There are so many opinions. Our news stations have gotten to the point where we don't know what news is anymore. Where do you go to get real facts? This is about real perspective for you. Beyond the Echo will cut through all the smoke, all the opinions. It's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about the issues and what are real. Hello, everybody. Kevin Ranke here, and today we have another episode of Beyond the Echo. Perry Johnson, candidate for governor in Michigan, is joining us today on Beyond the Echo, and we're going to answer the questions that you've asked me, and I think that Michigan deserves and needs to know about Perry Johnson. So, Perry, welcome to Beyond the Echo.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, Kevin.
Thank you so
for having
much.
me.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, we're going to make you sweat, and we're going to put a lot of pressure on you today.
I'm feeling the sweat already.
You decided to run for governor.
I did.
And you got in late. Tell us what you want to do for Michigan.
Well, I love Michigan, as you do too. And I love the state. And we have seen over the period of the last, I think it's now 30 years, a decline in our population. At one time, we were a state where people flocked. We were a state that was phenomenal in its growth. And it's been just the opposite. Particularly over the last 7 years, it's been particularly bad. And when you take a look at what's gone on, I think it's time that we have a change. What I wanted to do was to create an environment where people wanted to move to the state. And I had a very simple theme. Let's cut out the government waste. The government loves to spend your money. I mean, it makes them so happy. You know, they say, okay, give me your money and I'll find a way to spend it. But we not only have a problem with their ridiculous spending, we've gone to the point where we don't know that we can even trust the government because of all the fraud and abuse that's been taking place. And let's understand what's really happened in the state of Michigan. When Gretchen took office, the entire budget was $49 billion. That was the budget for the entire state. We had roughly 20% inflation over the last 7 years. So if it had gone up at the rate of inflation, we'd have a budget of around, let's say 50. Let's raise the 10 billion to 60 billion. And let's be real generous and let's say, okay, we're going to go over budget. Maybe it gets up to 64. Well, we're over here at $88.1 billion. That represents an 80% increase in the budget. That's 4 times the rate of inflation. And I believe that is the largest percentage increase in budget of any single state in the union.
You know, when you talk about that number, Perry, it's interesting to me because that's the number that politicians want to share. What they aren't talking about, on top of your $88 billion budget, and what Gretchen doesn't want to talk about is when the federal government allocates a state money, very rarely do they pay 100% for the project that they're giving money to. They pay a percentage. And what happens? You get 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 8 years down the road, and those federal dollars dry up. And what's government do? They turn around and say, we need to tax you. And there's another $20 to $30 billion of liability facing Michiganders over the next 7 to 10 years just to finish the projects that we may be starting this year. And that's the hidden tax because it's coming unless we get a real leader that creates an environment for Michigan to be successful in. So that's the hidden tax on Michigan citizens the politicians don't like to talk about, but it's their goodwill. It's their forward thinking. And I like to say at what expense? Gretchen Whitmer's been terrible for Michigan.
In every possible way. The only thing, that because she is a very outgoing personality, You know, she likes to socialize because during COVID, she was the only person that was allowed to have people around her. We were all confined. We could never have more than, I think we were limited to like 8 or 10 people at a time, even though she could go to the bars and do whatever she wanted. Bottom line on this is when we take a look at money, it's really hard on people if they keep getting squeezed. And that's what's happened in Michigan. What I want to do, and we can do, is to eliminate the state income tax. Every single state in the union that has eliminated the income tax has ignited the population, ignited the economy, made it more attractive for business, and as a result, they started booming. We've been in a situation with a declining population over the period of the last 30 years. You take a look at Tennessee, they were in a very similar boat to Michigan, and they eliminated the income tax, and suddenly they're booming.
Interestingly enough, Art Laffer, who did the Reagan tax cuts, lives in Tennessee. And Art's a very dear friend of mine. Not only did they eliminate the income tax, they reduced regulation. They reduced the size of government and the scope of government. And the state of Tennessee has exploded. Incomes are up. Educational results are up. Tax revenue is up. Interestingly enough,
because people
with lower
move in.
Taxes.
Yes.
Does that work? Lower taxes actually create more tax revenue because the citizens have an opportunity to spend it the way they want to.
Well, you also increase the population and you have businesses move there. Take a look at Ford Motor Company. That's really been the hallmark of Michigan. They helped build Michigan right from the beginning. They've invested a fortune in trying to build this state. And yet, when they built their new plant, they didn't put it here in Michigan. They put it in Tennessee. Why? Because it's a more favorable environment for business. You have to create a favorable environment for business and the people that live there. Somehow people don't recognize that the key to our entire growth is having an environment where people can come, make money, and keep their money. When the government wants to take all your money, it is not a very pleasant environment. You take even California, now they're up to, I think you can go as high as 13.3% in state income tax. So you have people moving out of there. And we have a situation where we can have a totally great economy with people loving to move here, loving to live here. And all we have to do is start running it like a business. We waste money endlessly. My plan's quite simple. I have spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies. That's all I do. I've been doing this for almost 35, 40 years. And we have done this across the world. I know people call me the quality guru, not only in the United States, all over the world. I think we're in somewhere around 67 countries. Really, I guess now it's about 72 countries. I have been bringing this quality and efficiency to companies, and they follow basic principles. We have rules that we follow. We audit, for example. You can't, now, they don't allow us to audit in Michigan. When I'm in, I have what's called a mega approach. We are going to have an overall approach where we are going to have overall efficiency, and we are going to have an overall efficiency program where we're going to audit every dime that's spent. Now, we do things in Michigan that are so absurd that it's almost laughable. Some of the expenses we have are beyond comprehension. Now, you and I both know because you were running for governor. Remember that?
Vaguely.
You would have made a great governor, by the way.
Well, thank you.
So you're running for governor, and in 1 year alone, we spent over $11 billion in overpayments for unemployment and Medicaid. $11 billion. Understand, we only collect
$11 billion.
We collected only $13.3 billion in income tax. That year, we only collected 11.3. So we could have actually eliminated the entire income tax with that one move. What about the idea of the Amtrak train? They want to improve the speed of the Amtrak train by 10 miles an hour. Do you know that they spent $1 billion on that? $1 billion.
They study it. Look at the Amtrak train that California had. They spent over $150 billion, and they still haven't built it yet.
Well, what about no? I think Michigan does a little bit better on that. We have a study so we can measure the effectiveness of the studies
As we
in
should.
Michigan right now.
As we should. I say often, Perry, and it's interesting that you talk about creating an environment. I wrote a paper for Harvard on leadership that I submitted, and it's what do leaders do, and what compels people to follow them. And I actually listed elements. And the first thing that a leader does is he creates an environment for the people he leads to be successful in. The second thing that they provide is where are we going? How are we going to get there? Who do we go to for help? How are we doing along the way? And what's in it for you when you follow that leader? And you apply that to business. And it sounds like unconsciously that you would endorse that leadership model that I just described.
Absolutely. Not only that, understand how government works. They get a budget. Every department gets a budget. And they go out of their way to make sure all that money is gone every year. In
Well, they don't
fact,
want to lose they
no,
don't want
because
to get less money.
their power is determined by how much money they have in their budget. So they
Sure.
want that budget to be bigger and bigger. So they look for ways to spend more money. In other words, you give me your money and I'll find a way to spend it. And you know, Kevin, you have quite a lot of money. I think you should give it to me. And that way I will take care of, if you need something, I will occasionally give you some money, but I'll spend your money. And I'm really good at spending your money, Kevin. And by the way, I think all the people around here are pretty good at spending your money.
I was hoping, Perry, that you would have given me your money and that you'd be interviewing me and I'd be running for governor right now because you got more money than I do.
Well, here's what's funny about it all. It's very easy to spend
Other
somebody else's
people's money,
right?
I call it OPM disease.
It really is. Yes, it is. And the irony of this whole thing is that we have an opportunity in this state to change all that. And we have an opportunity to give the money back to the people. So you ask me, why am I running for governor? I have 3 kids. I love my kids, my family. I have the most wonderful wife in the world. I couldn't have a more perfect life. I want my kids to stay here in Michigan. And when I see the young kids and I talk to them and they're moving outside of the state, I say, let's create this environment where people want to stay here. Now, we talk about the whole idea of the income tax. I don't think people realize that it takes very little for us to do this. They say, well, are you going to be able to eliminate the income tax without another tax? I say, not only will I eliminate the income tax without any tax, another tax, I'm going to improve the way people are living right now, because we really should have a budget closer to around $65 billion, not $88 billion. We collect only $13.3 billion in income tax. We can have another $10 billion left over that we can all work with and try to give some of that money back by a reform of our property taxes. So we can do a whole lot here. It's not a situation where we're going to keep all their money. I say we create a very good economic environment for people, so people want to come to Michigan, want to invest in Michigan, and the kids that we have want to stay here.
When you go into a business, Perry, it's always interesting to me because we talk about efficiency. And in a perfect world, people are 100% efficient across the board. Every member of the team is 100% efficient. It's possible to be more than 100% efficient depending on how you measure results. And that's a really good scenario. Where I'm going with this is when you look at government and you apply a perceived knowledge of efficiency to the budget, $88 billion of taxpayer money, what percentage of that money do you think is being spent efficiently?
Uh,
And it's a wild ass guess, by the way.
no, I can tell you in normal business that I go into, it's very normal for us to find a way when companies want us to come in and become more efficient to cut the overall cost by roughly 10 to 20% and improve the quality of the services. That can be done typically within about 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
In government, we probably can do something that might even be a little bit better. Right now, you do understand the basic concept that we have is to make sure that every department that spends every penny that they have. And they'll even try to find a way to come up with some ridiculous exploratory idea so they can get rid of that money so they can get more money. I wrote a book, 2 Cents to Save America. And in that book, I made a very simple statement. We changed the way government is run. And instead of having them spend the budget, we incentivize them to spend less. And it's nothing to ask everybody to cut 2 cents out of every dollar because that 2% comes overnight. Now, it's very interesting how it works, too. You'll typically have managers together.
Well, the snowball effect of it.
Oh, very
It's
much
huge.
so. So then I have managers together and they have this meeting. And I say, what I'm really looking for is there anybody here that has the ability to cut 10%? And everybody will say, no, 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 no. And then one guy will pop up. And so he or she will say, in fact, I remember the one company, it was a woman. She came and said, no, I can do it. I said, great. So we have a meeting. And next meeting, I said, yeah, we have a way here. I won't mention her name. She said, okay. She thinks she can cut 10%. She's pretty confident. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have her techniques, and maybe she can indoctrinate you. And maybe one day in the next 6 months, we'll just have you report to her so she can tell you how to run the operation. Because apparently none of you can come up with a way of making it work. So we'll have her teach you how to make it work. One by one, people start coming to me, I can make it work. I can make it work. And pretty soon, everybody finds a way to save that 10%. And you know, when they cut the 10% out, we're not losing anything. Look at what President Trump did. I mean, he got rid of, what is it now, 240,000 workers? We haven't missed a beat.
Well, interestingly enough, prior to President Trump, the fastest growing employer in America
Was the federal government.
Was the federal government, followed by state government.
Yep.
And private sector employment was lagging. Under President Trump, you have negative government growth. And what's happened? The private sector has exploded.
Right.
That's where we benefit in the private sector. Government employees, they're not bad people, but they are takers because they are paid by the people that pay taxes instead of givers.
And they aren't incentivized to be efficient.
No, again, it's other people's
They're
money.
incentivized to be inefficient.
Absolutely. Who wants to stir up the pot when you work for the government? That'll get you in trouble. And it's
Yeah.
it's a great job.
It actually hurts your ability to get promoted.
Yeah.
So the entire attitude the government has to change. We have to change their thinking. And in that book, I talk about how that is the key. So we start out, we have an opportunity to give more money back to the people. We have an opportunity to let people keep their money. And it amounts to $4,747 per family per year. Think about this. Almost an extra $5,000 every year per family if we just eliminate that income tax. So people talk about housing. Well, if you get to save $5,000 a year, it isn't long before you have enough money to put a down payment on a house. If you get to save $5,000 a year, you're talking about a whole car. That pays for a car every year because your car payments aren't going to be more than that or about that. The advantage that you have in returning the money to the people is that they now have more money to spend. which ignites the businesses here. So those businesses that are here are getting that money, that revenue, that gives money for them to spend. And that multiplier effect in the private sector is roughly 10 to 1.
Yeah.
The multiplier effect in the public sector can vary anywhere from 1.5 to 3 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to make much more when you give the money in the private sector and have them spend it than you are increasing the public sector.
Sure. And, just to do simple math for folks, I'm going to take your 88 billion and round it to 90 for simple purposes. At 20% of 90 billion, that's 18 billion. And the income tax leaves, if it takes out 14 billion, that leaves 4 billion for goodwill projects traditionally. If it's 30% of 90 billion, think of reducing government by $27 billion and not missing a beat because it's within the efficiency curve and you're putting that money back into the hands of the citizens who are going to spend it.
And when they spend it, understand, as they spend it, it ignites the economy.
Absolutely.
Because they're spending it in Michigan.
Are you a use tax guy?
I'm a no tax guy.
Well, there's going to be taxes. I get it. I hate taxes personally.
Well, yeah, but we don't need to increase it to more than 6%.
What I mean by that, though, is I would rather pay a sales tax when I choose to buy something, whatever that is, versus have the government assess me a tax based on my income that the government chooses how to spend it. So I like consumption taxes. Steve Forbes, and I think a lot alike. He's smarter than me, but I always liked his flat tax and his consumption tax because the math works. And you talk about fair. When politicians say it's not fair and they have solutions that make it fair, I like to look at politicians and say, well, then let's just go to Forbes's tax because that's the fairest tax I've ever heard of.
Well, you're talking now about at a national level. I'm talking about on the state level right now.
I get it, but I was using it just for example purposes.
I understand, but what I want to do is go back to your excellent breakdown on the savings, 30%. Let's keep in mind that if we had just that 10% raise, we'd be at 60 billion. So if we went up, 20%, if we went up at the rate of inflation,
sure,
we would not be at our current levels. It would go from 49 to right around $60 billion.
Yeah.
That is 28.1, or if you round it up to your 90, 30 billion less.
Yeah.
28.1. So that is just bringing it down to having us increase our overall expenditure at the rate of inflation. Now,
the roads got fixed. Education.
Think about the roads.
Wait a minute. The roads got fixed. Education results went up, didn't they? We're graduating more kids that can't read, can't write, and can't do arithmetic than ever before.
Why don't we talk about education? I love.
We're going to talk about education.
The roads. She ran on fixed damn roads, and I'm going to ask everyone out there: are the roads any better today than they were? Right now we're in a situation where they have this perpetual fixing of roads.
She ran on a slogan and never had a plan. Never had a plan.
Well, she did. She was going to spend more of your money because
she bonded it. So she had the money to fix it, but she really never had a plan. I'll give a shout out to the Republicans this particular time because they have presented and passed a road plan that is real. Not necessarily the way that I would have liked to have done it, but the roads, we're going to see improvement. And instead of a negative scenario, it's going to take probably 3 to 5 years, but we will have a positive road improvement program that has funding, that is real, that isn't a slogan, And I think the people of Michigan, if they look at it, albeit not perfect, can now feel confident that that part of the infrastructure is going to improve over time. And it's not because of anything Gretchen Whitmer did. It's because of what the House and the legislature did. But let's evolve into education, Perry. What do you think about education in Michigan?
Well, the reason I bring this up is that you and I know that she allocated $1 billion a year to ameliorate the quality of education relating to reading and writing. Now, it's important to understand that when we went into her, what was it, 7 years into her overall term in office, we weren't doing that great. Depending on the year you looked at it, in measuring in terms of reading and writing for fourth graders, I think we were running around 26th. Some of them were 27th in the country. We put $1 billion a year into that program, and now we are 44th in the country.
You're trending to 47. So we should be
Well,
really proud of that. Yeah, we're actually trending to
downward.
47.
But in fact, when
trending
you
down.
look at the curve, every single year it went down and down and down. See, she also instituted a program where we no longer were teaching phonics. Now, this is the interesting thing. When you teach somebody to read, there are two things they need. They need to understand phonics and what it sounds like, and vocabulary. Those two concepts. When I learned phonics, and I have 3 kids, and I remember the Letter Factory. I would have them play this Letter Factory. It was a video at the time, and I got sick of hearing it. Every letter makes a sound. The A says ah, the B says ba.
Sing it, Perry. Sing it.
it.
Come on, I like that.
And the kids were singing it. I started playing it to them really right around 9 months, 10 months. And it's amazing because they pick up all the sounds of the letters, all the phonics. How we ever got this idea that phonics shouldn't be taught was beyond me. It's the nuttiest approach ever. So we also have to factor in that systematically, at one time, our educational system was quite extraordinary in various levels because there was a time when we were number 3 in SAT scores. Now we're 3 from the bottom in the entire country.
Yeah.
So we have gone downhill. It is not the amount of money that you put towards something. It involves a lot of strategy. So you have to take a look at how you're allocating that money for what purpose. And you can't just throw money at things and expect that to be the answer. We threw money at the roads. She never fixed them. Think about the roads.
We're throwing more money than ever before in Michigan. Almost $22,500 per student.
No, it's 25.5 now.
Okay.
According to the latest stat,
Okay, well,
25.5.
22.5 would have
We're
been
number
the
5 in
most.
the
Now
country.
it's 25. And let's keep throwing more money at it.
5 in the country, by the way.
Right, right. Interestingly enough, you're a quality guy. If I came to you and I said across society that we could get 92% of the people performing at their efficiency level, would you say that's pretty good?
That's very good. Yeah.
Guess what phonics does? Proven across America, proven through the educational history of not only our state, but when it was taught, 92% of kids that are exposed to phonics will read at grade level. Currently in Michigan, Perry, and you know it, and I know it, 17% of our third graders in Detroit read at grade level efficiency. This past year, we graduated 52% of our seniors that couldn't read at grade level. In the teachers union, leadership, not the teachers. I love teachers. I don't love the teachers union. Bragged that we had the highest graduation rate in the history of our state. We are forcing people into failure.
They don't have to perform to graduate.
That's we're setting
doesn't
them up
mean
to
anything.
fail. We're creating a lower common denominator, and instead of government doing the job that it should do to support, to create that environment for people to be successful,
You actually create
we're giving up on them.
and we make it very difficult for them to succeed in life.
Yeah.
You have to have basic skills. Of course, uh, in my case, I always was taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, that's what you
That
learned.
would still work today.
Yeah, that was the basic.
Sure.
So I went to understand my background. So I grew up in Dalton, Illinois. Uh, I it, I grew up in a 600 square foot home. I had two siblings. My dad was a pilot in World War II. My mom was a nurse in the Army Wax, and they met in Europe. Biggest break in my life. But I went to Catholic school, St. Mary's, actually. It was in Riverdale. It's about a mile and a half away. And I had one teacher for all my classes. So we would have about 26, 27 kids in the class. And I remember my first teacher was Sister Mary Dolores, and she became the principal, and I was in eighth grade. When I was in second grade, my goal was to be Pope. I wanted to be the first American Pope. Uh, I realized in sixth or seventh grade, it was Mary Ellen Miller, and I realized I was attracted to women, and that wasn't going to work. So
yeah, I fall into the forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
Me too. So, and I was going to confession every week, and it was tough. So the bottom line on this is that I bring this up because I grew up 3 blocks from the Pope. So Pope Leo went to the same school, St. Mary's, had the same teacher I had, and my brother was in his class. And he became the first American Pope, ironically. So when we were teaching people back then, we would have only one teacher, and you would have 27 kids, and they focused on the very simple concepts of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And the irony is, if you were good at reading, if you became good at math, you could then learn all the other subjects. You would then be in a position where you could go and you could learn physics, you could learn chemistry, and you go to school.
Engineering?
And any field you want. It doesn't matter because you have the ability to learn. And it starts with that very basic ability. It sounds simple. It is simple. And it's probably the key fundamental thing. It's like if you want to be able to ever be a great athlete, you have to first learn how to walk. You have to teach people the very basics to give them a chance in life. And
It's
that's
one of those
what you need.
foundational pieces that transcends time. There's educators out there that say, "Up, you don't have to be able to read." There's educators out there that say, "Up, you don't need to write." There's educators out there that say you don't need to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide because technology is going to protect you. And I think that technology makes you a prisoner.
It actually can hurt you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what's the first thing? When we were kids, we had to learn our times tables, right?
Absolutely.
Right? So you get up there, and if you think that that this machine is going to do everything for you, you're no longer thinking.
It's so sad to me to go and to utilize cash in a retail outlet nowadays, and the people that are working the cash register literally have to look to see what the change should be. And then they
Yes.
count out, instead of being able to do it themselves. Perry, you've had a wonderful career in business. You understand business. And I like to say politicians today and moving forward, they've created the outsider in the value of the outsider role because politicians wanted to make more money. And we see that in our congressional members, we see it in our Senate members, we see it at the state
Look
level.
at Pelosi. I mean, at 165, 70,000 a year, she accumulates $100 million. You got to be
because
pretty
she's so
thrifty.
smart. No insider trading there. Where I'm going with this is this. Politicians were public servants in many instances because they failed at business. In some instances because they were successful at business. But they wanted to make politics a business. and they weren't very good at business. Doctors are great at medicine, but a lot of them aren't very good at business. It's not a criticism, it's just an observation that I have. What it does is it opens up opportunities for guys like Donald Trump, for guys like Doug Burgum, for guys like Ambassador John Rakolta to take their business acumen and their leadership skills, which are very, very unique, and apply them to governance and be effective with that. And in this particular race, I'm going to say, in my view, that there are 5 candidates that will get the signatures, will participate in the primary. And those candidates would be yourself, John James, Tom Leonard, Mike Cox, and Eric Nesbitt. No disrespect to the other folks. I just don't think they'll get there. If they do, egg on my face, whatever, I'll wipe it off and we'll move forward. So 4 of those 5 are simply political beasts. They're going to try and say, oh, I've got business success, but not really. They were employed by the government. They worked in the government. They worked for the government. They sued the government. They did what all related around government. And then there's you, an old business guy. And I say that tongue in cheek. Because you'd be the oldest candidate to ever be elected governor in the state of Michigan.
That is true.
Do you have the energy?
That's an understatement. Yes.
I want people to understand, because I know you. And I'm not sure I can keep up with you at times. But I want the people, because people have said to me, do you really think Perry wants this? And I said, there's no question that he wants it. Why would he be doing it? Does he have the energy? And remember, we're coming off of Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe. Michigan doesn't need that. How's Perry Johnson preparing himself to be governor? What's your physical activity routine?
Well, I'm probably the most active guy that you're going to have that's ever been in office from that perspective, but I swim every day. So
how far do you swim?
Well, it isn't how far. I swim sprints because I was a swimmer. And so even in the winter, and I keep the pool open all year, so I swim outside actually. Some of the people on the campaign wanted me to film my swimming outside when it was snowing. But what happens in swimming is it invigorates
People didn't
me.
want to see in a Speedo.
But it is so invigorating. And so I swim once or twice a day. How long? It depends on how much time I have. But I'll swim anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes, an hour. But it's a combination of things. I swim, I work out. It's very important to keep yourself physically fit just because you feel good. And I have worked out all my life. I'm unusually fit for my age. In fact, I think the doctor said that I am the most amazing specimen he's ever seen. I wish I could take credit for that just because of working out, but it's really genetic. So if you have a family that has certain genes, it's very, very helpful.
It helps,
right?
for
It
sure.
helps. Yeah. So the bottom line is, yes, I have a tremendous amount of energy. By the way, so does Trump. Because, when you talk about President Trump, he has an amazing amount of energy. His mind never stops. When we were having dinner, so it's so funny. Here we are. I'm in Mar-a-Lago, and we're having dinner. It's a casual environment and whatever. So it's, 11 o'clock at night. He has to wake up at 6:37 in the morning to catch a flight because he's going over to the border. And by the way, when he's on these flights, he is working nonstop at one thing after another. So we're talking about somebody that has an incredible amount of energy. Now, he's about 1.5, 2 years older than I am. And I want you to think about any president in history that works as hard as he does.
Oh, there's no question. And his favorite food is McDonald's.
It is. Well, I happen to eat healthy. So
You eat healthy.
but I'm it's my background. I'm half Polish and half Swedish Norwegian. So
Well, I laugh at the nuances though, and I go there because I know you eat healthy. We've had
yeah,
lunch together before. President Trump likes McDonald's. When I work with Roger Penske, Roger had a penchant for Snickers bars, and he lived on them. I mean, there were Snickers bars everywhere, and it just that energy level and the commitment and the drive is what I wanted people.
and that's part of the enjoyment of life. You know, in fact, I had people ask me, "Why do you do this?" I said, "That's part of the excitement of life." And not only that, when you get to my age and you have this literally perfect life, you couldn't have a better life than I have. You then say it's about time that you give something back. You think about it. We blame these politicians for going in there and not being able to run the government efficiently, but yet, can they really be expected to? Let's say that your mother, my mother wanted to have heart surgery. I would probably not go to an attorney or a dentist and have them work on the heart. I'd have somebody who has spent a lot of time and is a cardiac surgeon. If I have somebody who is going to work on my teeth, by the same token, I wouldn't take a cardiac surgeon. And if I'm going to have my hair done, even though the guy may be one of the most brilliant guys in the world, I'm not going to go and have the neurosurgeon try to cut my hair. Because if you want to have an expertise in an area, it takes a long time to develop. You know, I've spent 35, 40 years in this business developing this expertise to bring quality and efficiency to companies. And in the beginning, you make a lot of mistakes because you learn.
Sure.
But it takes those mistakes and that learning. Eventually, you become very, very good. Just like a doctor who's going to become a surgeon. In the beginning, he's not all that good. He learns. And in my case, I've spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies. I am like the guy with the perfect skill set to do that with the state of Michigan.
Well, the governor's job is to run the business of the state. The legislature's job is to legislate
Right?
within the state. Two nuanced roles.
They are.
And you are suited. And when I've spoken to all the other candidates about running a business, and it's interesting how they have all responded because some of them have stuck their toe in the business world. Some of them have stuck their foot in the business world, but none of them have the experience that you have or that I had. And they don't want to acknowledge the fact that
Right.
they fit in a political role. They just don't necessarily fit in the role of governor.
Right.
And I believe, because of our democracy, that the people deserve the government that they elect. And it's a very interesting thought. When we have bad government, it's not government's fault, it's the people's fault. And part of Beyond the Echo is to have people be educated about candidates, to be educated about issues. You know, when we talk about property tax, the state only controls 6 mils of the overall tax budget that people pay. So if we turn away from the income tax, which you and I as business people know gives more money to the people, allows them more choices, forces government to contract at the same time it attracts people to our state and our business community, the politicians will say, we're listening to people talk about property tax because it makes it easy on them. A leader would say, I'm getting rid of the income tax. Speaker Hall, Speaker Brooks, whoever else, you guys figure out how to spend the money legislatively to serve the people's needs. I'm running the business, correct?
Yes, and here we have a situation where I can eliminate the income tax. We have
Yep.
a way of doing that. The problem with the property tax, we can make some changes, and it needs to be reformed. We all agree it needs
Yep.
to be reformed. So that can be done, but that is more of a longitudinal thing because you need a constitutional amendment to actually make the major changes that would need to be made.
Well, you'd have to override Headley,
Yeah, and
which has been, was that 78
I think it was
or
94. I think it was 1994. I think. But
there was a tax law in 78 or 79. I don't know
I
what
think
it
there may
is.
be another one. Now you're talking about two different laws,
Could
both
be.
relating.
Yeah.
And you've got a situation, though, where I think it was 94, but I could look it up, but I think it's 94, where they ended up, it's now based on mills and it's divided into individual regions
Right.
and they decide. So when you take any time that you're talking about having to get a constitutional amendment to get something done,
It's a goat rodeo.
it's like you say, oh, well, it's something that I probably couldn't even do right away. When I tell people that I'm going to eliminate the income tax, I will eliminate the income tax.
I believe that.
And I will eliminate the income tax and not only not have any other taxes, I will eliminate the income tax and I will improve the quality of life here and the quality of services that we're getting because we are way out of whack. Now, I'm going to, in my campaign, I'll have what's called the mega audit, MEGA, Michigan Efficiency Government Audit. We are going to audit every single department and line item. This is what I do. We are going to find a way in which we can start running this state the way it should be run as a business. And we are no longer going to encourage people to spend every single penny that they have. Think of the people running their households. If I went to the people out there and said, okay, honey, do this. Honey, I want to make sure that we're broke every single year so we don't have any money. Every penny that we spend, I want to make sure that we spend it. In fact, I want to do a little bit more than that. I want to make sure that we spend more than we take in, because that's the government's philosophy right now. We're going to spend more money than we take in. The federal government, to give you an idea of the nuttiness, the federal government right now, when I campaigned for president, it was $32 billion, and I was exaggerating. And now we're up to 34, 35 trillion, in debt. 34, 35 trillion in debt.
Yeah.
Now, imagine this. Here we are, you collect, and let's take a good year, you collect $6 trillion in taxes. So the amount that you're in debt is 5.5, 6 times that. So we're going to use that for a family. Let's take a family. Let's say that your income, and I'll use the $120,000 a year as the standard income here in the family. And honey, okay, we're making about $120,000 a year. Right now, we're about $600,000 in credit card debt. So I want to go on a budget right now, and we're going to really this year. I don't think we ought to spend what we normally spend. So instead of spending $140,000 this year, which is $20,000 more than we make, let's cut it down to spending only $130,000 this year. Now, this whole notion of just spending the money freely like this, to me, is nuttiness. I happen to think that we should rethink the way in which government is run. And we say to ourselves, when you get a budget, that budget is the maximum amount that you can spend. You are going to be graded on how effective you can deliver that resource and to all those people and spend
For that amount
less
of money.
than that budget.
Yeah, well, think about Gretchen Whitmer just blew through a $9 billion surplus. I don't think government should have surplus money. That's the taxpayers' money myself.
It is the taxpayer money.
It's not Lansing's. It's not the elected officials.
We used to have a rainy day fund, didn't we?
And I didn't like it. Again, it's a surplus budget. But she blew through $9 billion. And I would question anybody in Michigan to identify what your $9 billion went to. I can't. I don't know. I just know that it's gone. And I think that, again, it's how you look at the situation. And Perry, talk about how a business person is going to approach issues versus how a politician approaches issues. And if I could, I'm going to offer some things. Business people like to identify the issues and provide solutions. Politicians like to have talking points. And I'm watching this campaign lay out, and it's so funny to me that something happens, and you look on social media, and the politicians all express something that would emotionally tie themselves to people. And the business people express real solutions in factual ways of preventing it from happening again. Which one's more effective, Barry? Facts and solutions or emotion?
Well, when you're dealing with my wife, emotion. Because my wife gets very
She
emotional
gets
about
emotional.
everything. As a matter of fact, you were in the same situation. Anytime you run for office, she'll look on the internet and they'll have these negative comments. And she says, "Oh man, this is awful." I said, "Honey, if you're going to be a politician, you better be able to have thick skin because you're going to have a lot of negative comments." And these are people that don't even know you, okay?
Never talked to you
Never
before, but
talked to you before. I said,
you are a new
the
form
mere
of dirt.
fact, and it's a fact of life. You have to face reality of life. Reality of life is quite simple. It doesn't matter whether you are a Republican, whether you are a Democrat, the mere fact, or even an independent, the mere fact that you are not in that one little group is going to cause people to not like you overnight, even though they've never met you, never talked to you, know nothing about you. Now, my basic theme has been very, very simple. I've run on one very consistent message. It's a very straightforward message, time and time again. $4,747 every year in every family's pocket, year after year, because we are going to eliminate the state income tax. That is the one thing that I can guarantee will happen. We can't, when I'm governor, not only will that happen, we are going to
do it all at once, would you please? Don't scale it back over yours. Eliminate it, force the legislature to
coerce
work.
them. They are going to come back just like I do in a business. They come back. We are going to find a way where we are going to cut these crazy expenses.
Yep.
And some of the stuff we have, when I looked at the one, I said, what thing really hit me? And I looked at some of the things we were doing. This was when I was running for president. I saw, we had spent several $1,000,000 because we were studying the effect of treadmills on the longevity of bluegill fish. I mean, I thought
that makes sense to me.
So I looked I'm in Michigan. We're looking at this stuff, and when I saw that we were allocating all this money so that we could study the effect of our studies, I mean, I said, this is just so crazy.
It's not.
But because what happens is they say, I've got all this money left over. We have to find a way to get rid of this money.
Let's transition for a sec to a word that I have a genuine distaste for. And I want to know, the word, by the way, is lobbyist. What do you think of that word?
What I think is that is a way for people to go and make a living that don't have anything else to do. There are politicians now that can't get elected into office because either they termed out or they couldn't get elected. And so now they've decided the future is to be a lobbyist. And
I'm glad to hear that, because I don't particularly, there's some nice lobbyists.
Oh, actually, some of them they're some of the nicest people.
Very nice. They're very convincing, very
Right.
coercive in their fashion. I want to ask you a direct question about lobbyists. Will you commit to having 0 former lobbyists on your cabinet or being appointed to any position if you're elected governor?
Well, I don't know all the lobbyists. So for me to go and make a commitment that I will have no lobbyist is hard because I don't know every lobbyist. I will tell you that I probably am against lobbyists more than you are.
I doubt that.
Mm,
I doubt that.
Because the lobbyists you understand
But that's a
are
good thing, by the way.
but the lobbyists you understand are the people that cause us to spend money in ridiculous ways. They exacerbate our problems that we have because they have a specific interest. Now, there are some things that are a little nutty, and I'm just going to explain how absurd things do get. You have a situation right now where we are building all these data centers, and I understand a lot of data centers out there. They're building the data centers, and the data centers are eating up a lot of our energy. So as a result, DTE increased our overall, I think they had a rate increase of 232 million. This was about 3 weeks ago. Maybe it's 3.5 weeks now. And because these data centers are eating up so much energy, they raised the price, and now they're asking for another increase. Now, who's paying for this? Not the data centers. We are. All the people out here are having an increase in their price because of this. Now,
That's not right, by the way.
Not
you and
at
I
all.
both are going to agree on that.
Yes. And you have to understand that Jacqueline Benson's husband is getting a $70 million commission. $70 million from all of these people because he gets a direct commission for each of these data centers.
Is Jocelyn's husband a lobbyist?
Uh,
or is he a representative?
That's why that's why I was very, very delicate in answering the question. Am I going to hire a lobbyist? You have lobbyists that can be called representatives. You have representatives that are called lobbyists. You have people that would end up giving you advice. For example, Governor Engler became a lobbyist, right? And for what? He's an attorney and he became a lobbyist for a while, but yet he's a guy that you go to for advice because he's had experience in how to handle
That's different
things.
than putting them on your cabinet.
Oh, they're definitely not going to be on my cabinet.
That's different than you appointing them to run
I
a
guarantee
division of
they
government.
will not be on my cabinet and they will not run a division.
Yeah, there's some
That's
smart.
Absolute.
Thank you. Because there's some
I
smart
guarantee it.
lobbyists.
Yes.
Very talented.
That I would need advice on.
Absolutely. I'm not saying that you would never limit yourself in that regards, and I'd never ask you to. Interestingly enough,
But you could never have that. That, in fact, that would be devastating.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Donald Trump recently had the primary businesses that are interested in data centers. The vast majority of them signed a commitment that was strategic, that was appropriate, and that people need to understand. And within that commitment that they signed, the data centers have to produce their own energy.
Yep.
They have to have self-contained water cooling systems so we aren't leaching from our Great Lakes. Data centers are going to be around for a long time, and they provide a lot of peripheral jobs in service industries. And I've said and gone on record and taken a lot of heat for it that we need data centers. We need to have them do the things that President Trump outlined.
Right.
Because in many instances, they'll create additional energy that will lower prices for the surrounding communities.
Eventually they will.
They can. And we need to implement. Michigan has 2 small nuclear reactor permits. The Tennessee Water Valley Authority is the only other entity in North America that has 2 small nuclear reactor permits for a total of 4. And boy, I would love to see a governor that believes in nuclear power, that believes in the value, the safety, the environmental friendliness of nuclear power.
In every possible way.
In these small nuclear reactors, not rebooting a second generation plant. I'm talking about the new nuclear reactors that are safer, that would reduce energy costs by between 20 and 40% in the areas that they're implemented, and that are environmentally friendly. It's the cleanest energy.
Cleanest by far. I think it's closer to the 40%, because the overall energy cost will drop 40%.
Yes.
And if you factored in the inflation factors, you'll see that eventually it will come up to about a 65% reduction.
Yeah.
So nuclear reactors are the cleanest form of energy we have.
Well, we've got 2 permits.
We do.
What are you going to do as governor to get those suckers put in somewhere and get them going?
Well, at this point, I cannot tell you because I haven't dug into the detail on that. I can tell you that I wrote about nuclear reactors in my book because there is no question that that is going to be the way to go, particularly now that we have the ability to have them to be so secure and so safe.
Yeah.
You know, after you had the problem over there in Russia, people became very concerned.
Remember the movie The China
Chernobyl?
Syndrome?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes.
Did you
With
ever?
Jack Lemmon, I think.
Jack Lemmon, I think, was in it.
Yes.
And
Remember, he was.
oh Christ, what's her name? I can't stand her. Jane Fonda. She was in it too.
Jane Fonda was in that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
remember.
Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas. Did you have a "I Didn't Die at TMI" T-shirt when you were?
No, I didn't.
Do you know what that T-shirt stood for? I didn't die at TMI, which stood for 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
Either did anybody else, or very few people died from it. But atomic power has come a long way.
It has.
And again, it is the safest, most efficient, cost-effective. And yet in Michigan, we have the state government trying to take away local control and local zoning to put in wind farms and solar panels. What do you think about that?
Think of how stupid this is.
Thank you.
First, no. First of all, we're not even like California, where you have the sun out there able to take advantage of the benefit of solar to any extent. And these wind farms, the amount of wind farm, the actual of these windmills you need just to be able to generate
Power
power
generation
is
is
so
de
ridiculous.
minimis. Yeah.
But here's the thing that makes it really stupid. I want you to really think about this. We all live on the same earth. Okay, so whether you produce this here or you produce this over in Africa or China, it's still all that pollution is going into the same spot. So they're talking all about the carbon going inside. So when they go and produce these blades that they have, so much carbon is put into the air that you look at the various studies, and it takes about 8 years of operation to offset the amount of carbon that was put in making
Each blade.
each one of the blades.
And there's how many blades per tower?
So, well, I'm talking about the blades in total. So if you have one in
It's
one
actually per blade period.
yes, but that's one windmill, right?
Yeah, but there's 5 blades traditionally on the windmill.
Yes.
And so yes, each blade. So,
is 8
but in
years.
essence, it's 40 years of carbon.
And so it's negative.
100%.
It's a negative impact.
Yeah.
So if their goal was to be more friendly for the environment, and if you accept the argument that we are affecting the ozone layer and the amount of carbon is having that impact, if you accept all those arguments, then by definition, because we all live in the same earth, the more windmills you have, the less friendly you are to the environment.
Oh, that's true with solar panels and whatnot and where we buy them from. And the fact of the matter is
It's
that
pretty
if we
stupid.
didn't have government subsidies,
Oh, it wouldn't exist.
none of them would exist.
No.
They are not the solution. Atomic energy, hydrogen has tremendous, tremendous potential, but atomic energy that is done correctly, and we have that technology today, is the safest, cleanest, most cost-effective. One of the last questions I want to ask you, what question haven't I asked you today that you hoped that you could share with the people that watch Beyond the Echo? Because we get pretty good reach. About 250,000 to 500,000 people a week engage with Beyond the Echo. So you're speaking to a lot of people that have a choice about voting for you. What didn't I ask you that you would have liked me to ask?
Well, when I go into a podcast, I don't typically think about what questions they're going to ask because I'm the kind of guy that really pretty much extemporizes anything. I've never used any notes. I just build my business the way it is. I don't think you ever asked me about any of the struggles that I had in life because people think that you become successful. This is what my one son said.
With a silver spoon?
Uh, well, I mean, my parents didn't have the money to send me to college. I had times in my life when I did not have the money for a sub sandwich. So to understand the kind of things that you go through is really funny. My one son that I have two 17-year-olds and a 22-year-old, and I have the one 17-year-old who says that the reason that you're successful in life is just luck. That and really, you have a lot of breaks along the way, but a lot of the fun is in the journey, right? So we all have different things that go on in life. In some ways, I had huge advantages because I had this family that really I knew loved me and they loved this country. But there were times when I remember vividly, I'm in grad school. My best friend at the time was Mike Sabini. He was in medical school. We were both stone broke. So I was about to be evicted because I couldn't pay my rent. I was working at Intervisions, and I'd been working there for 9 months doing therapy because I was in grad school, and I was also doing therapy at the clinic at the school. And of course, I hadn't gotten a paycheck in 9 months, and I couldn't pay my rent. I didn't even have enough to pay for food. I mean, I was in dire straits, and so I called Michael up, and we had finished second in the national men's in bridge, and we had this one fellow, Pino Weiser, who owned all these clinics. He had been wanting to play us, and I had no time because I'm going to school and I'm doing therapy. And finally I said, I have to because I need $1,300. If I don't get $1,300, I am going to be thrown out. And so we arranged for a bridge game. And of course, we knew we were going to win. I mean, we had people backing us in the event that we wouldn't. I mean, we're playing against somebody who had a pickup partner, and we were literally one of the best pairs in the country. And so we win $1,500. I had to make a $1,300 check out to the court, and that avoided my getting my stuff thrown out of the street.
Sometimes you make your own luck, right?
You do. So you go.
It would have been euchre or gin for me.
Oh,
I'm not a bridge player.
Oh, I played euchre. I played gin.
It.
When I was in college, in fact, my last year I played poker to live. I mean, I was a poker player. I played in all the tournaments, and so I was a bridge player, and I represented the United States in the Olympiad for I think 20 years.
In bridge.
Yeah.
That's quite a record.
I think we've won 5 national titles.
Yeah.
But I was a chess champion I played chess when I was little. And I used to play the blindfolded chess, and we would have 5. My dad used to have me on exhibition. He would have people come in and play. And I think I was 8 or 9 years old, and I would play them blindfolded. I wouldn't look at the board, and I would play them, and they'd be playing. And he thought that was good. So that's a skill set that you have. So you develop these different skills. And I think it all started when I was about 5 or 6 years old. We would go to my grandparents every Sunday, and they used to play pinochle. And I wanted to play pinochle.
My grandparents played pinochle too.
Isn't it right? And they wouldn't let me play.
Nope.
They said I was too young, okay? So I finally persuaded them to let me play. And I don't know how old I was. I was really young. Maybe I was 6 years old at the time. I was playing chess at the time a lot too. And they let me play, and they thought, oh, he's pretty good. So from then on, I played pinochle. But my parents used to play bridge. But I didn't really learn that game until probably right after undergraduate school. But I would have to say that in life, when you go through these different things, part of the greatest enjoyment I've ever had in my life is my kids. And if somebody asked me what is the single greatest joy in life, I would tell them that the single greatest joy in life is the joy you get from your kids. I have become very close to a couple of my boys. I had 2 out of 3 boys that I got into first tennis and then golf, and I caddied for them. So I started them in competitive golf when they were 6. And the great thing about that, and I recommend this to everyone, whether they have a boy or a girl, the great thing about teaching them golf is that you get a chance to bond with them because you spend so much time with them. Not only do you spend the time driving to your particular tournament that you're going to, you then are on the range with them for about an hour and 15, 20 minutes before they go on the course. You are with them side by side because you're carrying the bag for them while they play. And when they're young, it may take, this is not a 4-hour round. This is more like a 5 to 6-hour round because they're very slow. And then you're with them all that time. And then you're with them for the awards, which are typically another hour. And then you're driving back or flying back with them. So you're with them the entire day. And you do that with your kids, and you do that for, hypothetically, let's say 45, 50 days a year, you become very close. So as a result, you end up bonded with your kids and you remain close the whole time. It's a wonderful, wonderful sport. I mean, I think any sport is great, but when you get a chance to bond with your kids so that you can remain close to them, it is the greatest joy a person can ever have. And so I think my family life that I have is so special because I have the most perfect woman in the world, and I have these 3 wonderful boys. And to have that kind of life in this great country that we have is such a great joy.
Yep. It's a privilege to be in America. My dad had a saying, and my dad and I would hunt together. And he'd say, I take you hunting so I don't have to hunt for you.
That's true, yes.
And the analogy, we spent time together
And it's
in
so
the
key.
woods, in nature, we shared. And unfortunately, in today's world, kids are focused on cell phones and computers, and they don't get what you and I were fortunate enough to have. Um, Perry, this is a funny question as we wrap this conversation up. I believe that there's wisdom in the statement, it's lonely at the top because leadership is difficult and it requires people in many instances to do things that they couldn't identify themselves or they weren't inclined to do without there being pressure for them to do it. As governor of Michigan, are you willing to be lonely for the people of Michigan?
Uh, I haven't really thought about that. I have been running a rather large organization for a long time. I have great management, which is a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that I was lonely. I would say that you have to make decisions that make people unhappy, and you have to be willing to make those decisions
That's
because
the analogy. Are you willing to make the
you
tough
have to.
decisions?
I've been doing it all my life.
Really? And you've
Yeah.
been doing it successfully all your life
Yes,
in the
that's it.
private sector.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have to. But the bottom line.
Did you ever make a decision out of malice to hurt your employees?
No,
Did you ever look at one client and say, I'm not going to do as well for them as the other client?
never once.
Yeah. And to me, Perry, that's what you and I have in common. We have been blessed and cursed, maybe, to be leaders. And we understand what it takes. And I applaud you because you don't need to be governor of Michigan.
Oh, no.
You're giving your time, you're giving your treasure, you're putting your family in a position that, as your wife so succinctly identified, makes them targets. And you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for the people of Michigan. And I think we need more people like that in the political realm versus politicians. So I applaud you for that and want to thank you for coming on today's show and ask, would you come back again?
Of course.
And lastly, because so many people are going to see this and so many people are going to be intrigued by you, they may want to get in touch with you. How do they get in touch with Perry Johnson or the Perry Johnson campaign?
Well, our site is perryjohnson.com. And go there. But we do have a pretty elaborate team. So we do have a team of people. If I give out a number and that person ends up getting barraged, then I will probably have to hire a bodyguard because they'll want to kill me. So
well, you can get out a number if you like, but perryjohnson.com.
Perry.com is go there. And the thing to keep in mind is that even though it's a situation where we have an election, the beauty in the situation that I have right now is that I put my own money. I have not taken a dime from anyone. So I'm not beholden to anyone. Yeah. So I'm not going to have contractors come up to me and say, look, you should have me do the roads because I had a PAC and I gave you $1 million or $2 million to get you elected. I don't have any of these favors that I have to hand out.
Well, you and I were in the same scenario.
Exactly.
And,
you've been through it.
Yeah. And I was on off the record, but I'm on the record as saying my view. My view is that this election, this primary, comes down to two candidates. I believe John James is one of the two candidates because when you're a sitting congressperson, you're going to have name recognition, and that emanates across the state.
Well, and also he ran for Senate twice. Remember?
He failed running for Senate twice. He did run.
He ran twice, but they spent $100 million or thereabouts on him developing name ID to try to get him elected.
Well, to keep him in Congress, they spent $59 million.
They did. I know that's a lot of money.
And 60 days later, he said that he didn't want the job that they helped him. But that's an issue of character, in my view, that you took taxpayer dollars and you really didn't want to do the job. But that's a whole different story.
Yeah, well, that's what happened, though. That's what happened in Macomb County.
That's real.
That's why you have the cloud there, because you go to Macomb County and you see what happened. And I think you actually had commented on it because you see in Macomb County, you have this cloud that's taking place that we're resonating in Macomb County. They love my 47-47 plan in Macomb.
As they should. The second candidate that I think is viable in the primaries is a guy that you may know. His name's Perry Johnson. And in part, it's because you're different. Like me, you are a self-funder. You just have the ability to self-fund at a greater level than I did. But B, you're a business guy. And I think that Michigan needs something different. And Michigan needs somebody that's truly interested in all the people of Michigan. And business people don't hire their employees based on them being Republicans or Democrats, but politicians do.
Right.
I think we need business people to start running the business of the state of Michigan. And
correct.
It's not an endorsement on my part, but if it's not Perry Johnson, maybe there's somebody else out there. And I went on record as saying, I didn't want to run against you because we would be competing against each other at the expense of the value to Michigan. So, because you had more money, I was willing to step aside, and I wish you luck.
Well,
Thank you for
thanks.
coming on the show.
Thank
We'll
you
reach
so
out
much.
to you more as we get closer to the election. And again, folks, another episode of Beyond the Echo. The only candidate on the Republican side that still refuses to answer is a guy by the name of John James. And you deserve to have him sit in this seat and be as candid with you as Perry was today. And without that, you need to question whether or not you'll cast a vote for someone who's not willing to talk to you, no matter what their name is. We have had feedback from a Democratic gubernatorial candidate, a certain sheriff that I won't name. And we look forward to you being able to listen to a Democrat talk about what they would do for the state of Michigan. We're still hoping for an independent, and we're hoping for a certain current government official. Um, I won't mention her name either to respond, but somehow I don't think we're going to get there before the election. So thanks for watching Beyond the Echo. We'll look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Echo. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop us a comment and share the podcast with your friends. Stay connected and keep the conversation going by following us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring beyond the echo.